people in a cage and throw rocks at them if you're a kid and stone people to death, and I suppose some cultures still do that. But, you know, there is a lot of death on the Gold Coast in terms of older people. We have a very old demographic, and, you know, once you hit that 75, 80, you're looking down the barrel of a heart attack or a stroke if you haven't already had cancer, you know, or some other kind of thing that's going to take you out. So, you know, I've got one funeral home that I deal with that will bury 100 people a month, and you just don't see that.
It's just one funeral home on the Gold Coast.
One funeral home on the Gold Coast burying 100 people a month. So, you know, places that I work, big establishments, they have that sort of demographic that come through the doors, you know, the over 65, over 70 age group.
25 funerals a week.
Mm-hmm. That's one funeral home at probably 10 grand a throw. So,
wow, just imagine the service.
There's big
I'm
business,
in the wrong game.
There's big business in death, I can tell you right now. There is big business.
Of course.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, so if I'm in this cover band here, I'm always putting on a show, right?
Yep.
And you get oblivious to the punters. They're all drinking, they're trying to have a good time, so you're like, yep. There's a certain, you know, they become sheep to you in a way. So I'll imagine putting on the funeral home show.
Yeah.
You know, it becomes business and
absolutely
very caring, and you're good at your job.
Absolutely.
But once Mrs. Johnson's gone, we've got to get in for Mr. Smith.
I tell you, some of the stories you get from the undertakers and the funeral directors are just spine-chilling.
I'd love to know.
Spine-chilling. Yeah, I've got...
And bodies.
Yeah, I've had a guy that has worked with me that has been driving a body in the back of a morgue, in the back of a hearse to the morgue, and halfway through the trip to the morgue, the body's just sat upright in the back seat, on the back of the because gases obviously expand in the body after death, and groaning and movements and a kick of a foot, but this body sat upright in the back of his hearse as he's driving along the highway at 110. So I think I'd try and get out of the car at that pace, just about. Yep.
Far out. Imagine the noise.
Oh, just, yeah.
So I know nothing about that.
Yeah.
Imagine the guy driving beside the car.
Oh, you'd be thinking someone was playing a horrible joke. But those sorts of things, you know, that's quite reported. But I tell you, the other side of what they report in that industry is, and it's if you talk to anyone that's around that industry, they'll quite often, as they're preparing a body, get a bit of a tap on the shoulder, and every one of them will tell you these stories about ghosts or, you know, the spirit of the person they're looking after, and they'll play a bit of music and have a bit of fun because of it, you know, not fun, but they have to look at the lighter side of it.
Yeah,
but
right in the...
They'll report that every single one of them will tell you a story or stories about those sorts of situations that have happened to them. The old Gold Coast Hospital's a cracker for it, where they demolished that site. Right. There was an area down in the basement that they moved administration down to that used to be the morgue, and admin went in there. One of the admin departments went in there, and no one would go into that admin department after about 11:30 at night. There was an old lady with a cat absolutely walking around in that area. Files would be taken out and put onto people's desks, and things would move in front of people on a common basis. So, you know, regular basis. Yeah. Yeah, it gives you tingles down the back of your neck, doesn't it? That stuff.
Freaks me out.
I'm more practical. Like, I like the practical side of dealing with someone, but when it comes to spiritual, it's a bit, you know.
Well, same.
Yeah, bit spooky.
Huh. You know what's weird is that and I heard this from another show the other day, is that it's very strange that I love to eat steak, and apart from seeing, and I live on 2 acres, so I kind of see a dead cow from my neighbour's place every now and then.
Yep.
But hey, I'm sure I'm probably in the bottom 10%, bottom 5% of everyone in Australia even that actually sees some kind of death. Even I know in the Maori culture, you'll have the deceased in your house for up to 10 days. Actually, you know, and I know my Japanese wife, they'll cremate the body of her grandfather was cremated, and you get some sort of like chopsticks, and you'll sift. You have to actually sift through the bones of
really?
So there's teeth and everything, and they acknowledge death. So they get a feel for life and death. You know, but look at us. Whiteys over here just don't see cows being killed. We don't see a single thing in 30 years.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I think social media has probably played a little bit of a part in, bringing that into society, because some of the Facebook posts and things that you see, on social media are horrific because of mobile phones.
Yeah, but not in front of you. You can't smell it. You can't feel it.
It's totally different in front of you. Like you can, they used to do that in Vietnam and in conflict scenarios. They'd condition soldiers by showing them videos repetitively of these situations happening. So at least they had a bit of an understanding of what was about to happen to them. But if something just happens straight in front of you, big car accident, for example, or someone does have a heart attack, or a circular saw injury, or even just critical incidents where people survive, like it, what precedes or goes on after that is just it's pandemonium, really, because we're just not used to seeing it. So, the art of being able to deal with those situations effectively, and still making mistakes, like you wouldn't expect someone that doesn't do it all the time to be perfect at it. And I think that's where first aid comes in. It's not a perfect art, and a lot of organisations and a lot of people do teach a perfect art. Like you'll hear about doctors A, B, C, D. It's a great guide and it's something good to follow, but it doesn't necessarily always go in that order. An understanding of the bigger picture is what's required with that. So, that's how we come about teaching our courses, and from experience up at the resus ward, up at the Gold Coast Hospital, and a lot of practical experience, in industry with QAS and other organisations it just goes so far to be able to show people what to do,
Right. Is it ever changing in this crazy technological world?
Yes, mate.
You know what I saw? 2 years ago?
Always changes.
And I always call myself a muppet, but I like to play the part of the punter. Who says that? Only me.
Punter.
As in,
Yep.
But I don't even bet. But I won $750 on the fight.
Okay.
But anyway.
Nice.
Yeah, I know. But what I mean is, 2 years ago, I watched a medical science history. The history of it was probably on the ABC. Everyone saw it.
Yep.
And there and then, I learnt how only 120 years ago there was basically nothing.
Yep.
And there were only door-to-door doctors too. Basically, you got sick and you died in your home.
Yep.
And the doctor came around. You didn't actually walk to the doctors. They weren't one in every little shopping village. But things like chloroform, and all these experiments. Aren't we lucky? Yeah,
oh,
to be living in this now, and feeling no pain. Yeah.
Oh, someone asked me today, actually, in the course in Brisbane this morning. I was teaching CPR to a group of contractors in construction, and someone said to me, "Mate, why is this always changing? Why does it evolve? Like, has it evolved?" And I said to them, "Well, going back 150 years ago, they used to have a device where a doctor would turn up if you'd just died or gone into sudden arrest, where he'd turn up with a suitcase, he'd put it down beside you, he'd pull a device out of it that looked like a bellow and a little brass."
What's a bellow?
A bellow is like, the bellows that
the
you
wind thing?
You blow into
concertina
fires.
kind of thing.
Yeah. So it was only probably about, I don't know, maybe 2 foot long, quite a smaller sort of suitcase. And he'd have little brass O-rings that went on the end of the bellow. And his form of resus was actually lighting tobacco in that bellow, sticking it up your arsehole, and blowing smoke up your ass. And that's where the term comes from, blowing smoke up someone's ass. That
I'm not
was
trying
the
to blow
first
smoke up your ass.
form of a resus. So bloody oath it's evolved, mate. Because I tell you what, if I had died back, or you were sick back then, you'd run off into the bush and die, I reckon.
Who thought of that?
Oh, some weirdo, mate.
He's dead. I got a good idea.
Yeah. Oh, they used to stick all kinds of bad lemons up your backside to get rid of infections, and honestly, how far we've come. Cigarettes. Cigarettes, the original invention of cigarettes were for asthma, to open your airway. Dr. Batty's, look up Dr. Batty's famous asthma cigarettes. And that's what they're for. And we still teach even today.
But does it work?
It does, because it's an airway dilator to open up the airway to let the drug get in. So it relaxes and opens the airway. So if you have a restrictive airway not a sensitive airway, so to speak, but a restricted airway, then it helps to dilate the airway to open it up. And even today's cigarettes still work. If you've got
I have asthma. I wonder if my some whatever it's called. I wonder if that actually has some sort of tobacco.
It's not necessarily the tobacco, which is the drug. I'm not sure what's in it that actually dilates the airway. It probably is tobacco. Actually, I'm not exactly sure, but
Symbicort is what it's called. Anyway.
Yeah. It'd have salbutamol in it, which is an airway dilator. Like, generally speaking, that just helps to relax or strengthen the airway. But that's a conventional, puffer medication. But even cigarettes of today, like, they're mixed with a lot of other, addictive drugs and bad drugs. But if you have an asthmatic that is a smoker and you don't have access to asthma medication, then get them to have a puff of this cigarette. It's not conventional, but it does work. So, but don't take that the wrong way and give some young kid a cigarette that doesn't smoke, because that's going to smash them. Well, it's probably going to kill them because their airway will close up in that scenario.
And their bloody $2 a ciggy now. You just can't do that.
Yeah. Not ideal, is it?
This is so interesting to me.
Yeah.
So, what I was kind of getting at before was, I could imagine myself being that smartass that works in the morgue, I have been fortunate enough to my next door neighbour. I won't go into that story, but his stepfather, an ambulance guy, great guy. Right, so we'd sit around the campfire kind of thing, and he wouldn't tell me any of the stories because he didn't want to, because he's, like you said before, it's after hours. The only thing he wants to do is not think about work.
Yep.
But I've found every single ambulance person or person that deals with death to be salt of the earth characters. They bloody swear, and they, like, all of them are just absolute, like nurses.
Yep.
Like, they deal with sticking fingers up bums, and they're all these the genuine people.
Oh, and I think at the end of the day, like, all of the mod cons and all of the, I suppose, the social status that we have, it goes at that point when you are being at a point where you die or you are resuscitated. It doesn't matter who you are. You could be the PM, you could be a kid dragged off the street. It doesn't make any difference, really. It's just, this is a job, let's get it done. And the nitty-gritty of it is, it's everyone's brought back down to that level at that point of their life, that everyone's on the same playing field. It doesn't matter who you are. There's no presidential treatment in terms of how you're going to go or where you're going to go. It's just get the job done. And I have halfway through resusces or halfway through looking after someone or trying to help a team that is working on someone. You'll get nurses swear, get the shit, F and this and F and that, and they'll come up to you later on and apologise. But, when the heat's on, the job has to get done.
That's what you want. They're making a point.
Right, this is it. Yep. And don't worry about all that crap, just do this.
Yeah.
And it really does show you at the end of the day that understanding that big picture, like, it really is a problem-solving skill. And, without being too much of a cliche, like, I think improvise, adapt, overcome is how we teach first aid. It really does have to be, well, if that's not working, then try this because this is the reason it's happening. So here's a couple of different techniques to problem solve this skill. And that's really how first aid should be taught. Not, you've got to follow this exact procedure and guideline and you're going to break a rib if you do that. There's so many fallacies when it comes to first aid and myths when it comes to first aid in those particular courses.
Have you come across any lately? Like, just say you're with the ambulance crew and you get to site and there happens to be someone's bloody uncle who's a know-all about everything, or... What's a weird question to ask, but...
Yeah, I think...
people that get in the way.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think I teach a lot of GPs on the Gold Coast, and the way that we teach with BLS, like basic
GPs,
life support...
What is in...
general practitioners, so doctors...
But what about emergency techniques?
Yeah, so they contract me in to come and do first aid and CPR. Well, CPR training for them every 2 years. So it's done every 2 years, and we're a large organisation that do a lot of GPs on the Gold Coast through the Gold Coast.
Isn't that interesting, though? They're the doctor, but of course they've been studying what they do. But you're not technically a doctor, is that correct?
No, I'm not a doctor. I actually don't have any formal medical training, so I'm not a clinical person. I'm a basic first aid person.
But the beauty of it, you're more knowledgeable in And
first responder.
Yeah.
So you quite often will get.
That's great for other people to hear, though.
Oh, mate, it's interesting. You know, what actually happened on the Gold Coast a while ago was they